Hola, cowboys! Welcome to the Indie Game Roundup! We wrangled up some big doggies for y'all today. Animalistic, Covert Critters, and Ex Zodiac. No more gabbing, we're getting right into this rodeo! I don't know why I went for the cowboy theme, it just felt right. For those of you strong enough to have not clicked off yet, first off, thanks. Second off, this is a new, shorter series I want to try out, a chance to get some smaller projects I'm excited for into as many people's minds as possible. Indie games may not have all the pomp and circumstance of AAA games, but they're sort of the stuff I play games for. Indie games so often have the fingerprints of their developers all over them. You can tell exactly what they're into, what they like, and what their design philosophy is. Sure, major releases can give you better graphics, but sometimes less is more, and games made under the tightest restrictions can end up being the most memorable. That's exactly what we're looking at today. Did I intend for all three games to be animal-themed? No, but sometimes these things happen. First on the docket is Animalistic. Before we say anything at all, though, I want to make three things very, very clear. I was contacted by the developer of this game and was asked if I would show it off in return for a free copy. I agreed under the condition that I would be able to say whatever I wanted. Everything I'm going to say is my own opinion, and I'll be sure to point out what I like and what I don't like. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything just because of how I got the game. I wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't like it. With that out of the way, Animalistic is a shooter that puts you in the boots of the last surviving human on Earth. Everyone else was wiped out by these creepy mascot-headed animals with assault weapons. That's all you really need to know because that's all the game really has. It just drops you right into the action. Off the bat, the dev made the right choice of letting my punch shatter most things in the environment into splinters. I never even opened a door in the whole game. If it can't be punched, I want nothing to do with it. The atmosphere is on point. The whole game has this uneasy feeling. The levels are all covered in blood with unnatural neon lighting and graffiti art all over the walls, droning quiet techno that starts thumping when you get into combat. Once you crawl through a vent, you get face to face with the enemies, or rather they rush at you so fast that your head is halfway up their nostrils by the time you remember what a keyboard is. These guys come in tons of varieties depending on the species. Lions and warthogs wield axes, pigs usually have pistols, cows and kangaroos have machine guns. It's a great way of making them instantly recognizable so you know what you're up against. Blast through your favorite legally distinct characters like Alan the lion, Pumbo, Donkey! They are incredibly upsetting to see come from behind a corner. Once you get your hands on a weapon, that's when the game starts proper. How it was pitched to me was as a breakneck pace action game where the pulse is pounding and the heart is always racing. I don't think that's exactly what I got. I'm not saying the game isn't quick-paced, I'm saying that there's not going to be much game to play if you play it that way. Through my time playing, I actually got a lot more Hotline Miami vibes. Yeah, the neon lights, single-use weapons with no reloading and extra ammo, and the fact that you stand up to the enemy's attacks in the same way mobile homes stand up to hurricanes. I found that the slow and steady approach was a lot more beneficial for the whole living thing. I know it's a fad, but I'm willing to try it. Yeah, your health is incredibly low in this game. You can take maybe a few shots before you're down and out, and it took me a long time to figure out that dying was indeed not the objective. It gets a lot better when you figure out that you can just take it a bit slow. You have to approach rooms very carefully and never be afraid to create distance by running away like a little piss baby. If you want a little more survivability, you can always go animalistic by pressing Z. When you're in this mode, not only does your view become a kaleidoscope, but you also move faster and can plow through enemies. Of course, the trade-off is that you whip all around the place. Yeah, despite the game being named after it, I usually avoid going animalistic since it's a lot more disorienting than anything. It has its benefits like getting you through tough rooms that you couldn't have otherwise, but it's better as a saving throw than a super form in that regard. The game's difficulty can be super punishing. It's way too often that you make it deep into a stage for something to just send you barreling back all the way to square one because it came out from behind a corner. Not like it's a deal breaker or anything, the beginning of the stage is usually just a few minutes back, but when it comes to making the stage feel like it goes on forever, these guys are the worst for it. These frog enemies run at you with grenades in attempts to blow both you and themselves up. They can be a fun and cool way to get a bunch of enemies at once in a big blaze of team-killing glory, but when they come at you from behind corners or down narrow hallways, you start to pray the frog population drops quicker. Now, so sometimes when you lose, the game calls you a cuck. Just want to make sure you know that before you make any purchasing decisions. If all this has sounded pretty negative, I just wanted to get the negatives out of the way before I could talk about what I liked. These levels are all really well designed and visually distinct despite taking place in similar environments. The thumping neon lights of the club stage, the shipping containers and air vent maze of the warehouse level, the wide open battle arenas of the house siege level, everyone stands out in their own way. Not just that, but they're bite-sized. The club stage is one of the ones that it took me the longest on, and even when I got down to it, it only took me about 3 minutes. bats. You can make a bag of popcorn or you can play an animalistic level, choose wisely. The weapons as well are all impactful and have punch, save for the auto shotgun. I can shoot a guy 50 times in the face with it and they just walk through it like a beaded curtain. Lady Liberty, the heavy machine gun, is the best though, as it's just a delete key for anybody. I like the on-the-fly nature of the weapons loadout. Given the option, I would just use Lady Liberty and maybe joke about using other guns, but the fact that you have to swap them out because you can't reload ammo makes you get used to them all, and certain guns are better for certain situations. I know, I'll use my shotgun to snipe them! Their utility doesn't just end at the bullets that come out of them though. When you're tapped for ammo, you can just launch your gun at them. It's choices like that that give combat a nice variety of options. You can take the game nice and slow like I did, or maybe you're more at home going for the high score. While it doesn't have a point system, and I will be contacting the dev about this, you get a nice stat screen showing you how fast you did the stage, how many enemies you killed, and how often you died. The game clearly glitched or something. I never actually died once. If you could please patch that, I'd really appreciate it. The further you get into the game, the more enemies get introduced. Alongside your axe and gun guys, you get rhinos and bulls with riot shields, the bomb frogs, and these bats. Oh, the bats. They're introduced pretty late into the game, but they are such a pain to take out sometimes. They're fast enough to dodge whatever you have, like bullets or fists, but they can get in and kill you just fine. As you get further in, you even have a boss battle or two with very thematically different looking bosses. Are these guys in charge because they don't look goofy like the rest? Also, the level progression goes nightclub, 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 Dracula's castle, nightclub, nightclub, Ice Crown Glacier. The boss fights themselves aren't much to write home about in all honesty. You just sort of strafe around them and shoot them. They're constantly behind you, and I mean constantly behind you like a slasher villain, but if you just keep moving forward, they're never gonna hit you. As it is right now, Animalistic is available for 7 bones on Steam Early Access, with a more than generous 13 levels of the planned 20 available. When I compare it to Hotline Miami, that's high praise. I think the game, as it is a well-crafted shooter. Do I think that maybe there could be some changes, like leaning more into the methodical way of taking enemies out? Of course, but it's clear the dev may think the same way as he cited Rainbow Six as one of his inspirations. But as it is, I still think anybody looking for a quirky, stylized little indie game will have fun with Animalistic. But what if slow and methodical isn't slow and methodical enough? Well, you might as well just make it a stealth game at that point. Kinda like Covert Critter. I found out about Covert Critter the same way I learned about most stuff, seeing it out of the corner of my eye while watching YouTube and eating dinner. I actually found out I'm gonna be a dad the same way. Covert Critter was developed in only 12 days by Raptorsoft, a duo of devs well-versed in PS1-styled games. Their previous releases include Hypnagongia and the demo to Hypnagongia. I tried to describe it, but I think that's better left up to my therapist. Covert Critter actually taps into the genre of indie games that I'm a particularly big fan of. Big devs don't want to make the game, so I'm gonna make it myself. Konami has locked up Solid Snake into an eternal Odin sleep and only wakes him up to parade him around for pachinko-related misery. As such, Raptorsoft decided, fuck it, if they aren't gonna make a sneaky game, I guess we will. See, there are fan games, there are tribute games, and then there's Covert Critter. This is just a new Metal Gear game, and I mean that in the most loving way possible. I mean, just look at the title. If they're not trying to hide it, why should I? Critter puts you in the shoes of Koss, a surly cigarette-chomping gecko tasked by your commanding officer to take out the Red Hawks, who have taken over a nuclear research base and plan on launching a warhead, all while pinning the whole thing on geckos everywhere. From there, 8 levels stand between you and stopping a disaster. So if you played a Metal Gear Solid game before, you get the gist of how Critter controls. Top-down camera angle, the ability to run and sneak to mask your footsteps, gadgets to help you get past guards, and view cones to let you know where it's safe to move. Where this game differs is with 2 key features. One is that Koss can use his gecko camouflage to blend into backgrounds, making guards walk past him without ever noticing. The trade-off is that you have a bar tied to how much you can use it, and it's not gonna fool guards who already know you're there. Now, if they don't know, they can practically breastfeed off you and they won't even realize you're there. The other is that while Metal Gear is all about sneaking around a larger connected facility, Critter is not just level-based, but time-based. You get graded at the end of every level depending on how fast you get through it. That's all you're graded on at the end since there's no taking down guards. You're a stealth operative after all. Killing everybody in there would fix a lot of problems, but it's not really our wheelhouse. You can set down banana peels, fake presents, even boomboxes to try to distract the guards and get them off your trail. There are also mealworms to help your health and a drone to help you scope out the area ahead. The first 2 levels are to get you accustomed to the controls and the general layout of the game. Since you have no means of on-the-fly defense and you have such a good tool in your cloaking, you're gonna want to do everything you can to avoid fights, and the game gets you accustomed to this change in playstyle. By level 3, you have to sneak past multiple guards and cameras at once, and by level 4, you're robbed of your mini-map crutch. This level takes place in total darkness, and with your radar jam, you have to rely way more on your actual vision to get past all the guards. It's also when you realize that camo bar goes away a lot quicker than you'd hope. You'll be frantically looking around the corners for guards, realizing that they're just out of view and having to camouflage like your life depends on it to slink past. It helps that while the camo is a nice safety net, it isn't guaranteed to save your life. Enemies shred your health like copy paper, and if you run around recklessly, you're as good as dead. Not to mention that when the guards do come up to investigate your last position, they can sometimes knock you off the wall and you get caught. All of this culminates in the exact same sensations as a normal Metal Gear game would give you. A stealth game that actually makes you feel sneaky. Covert Critter does an amazing job at making you feel like you're actually thinking out each and every room, keeping tags on guard positions and their routines, and making you feel like the smartest son of a gun on the planet when it finally all comes together with a successful run. The next level has you running through a giant freezer where you need multiple keycards to get through a labyrinth of a room, with specific sections where your radar is jammed and you have to fall back on what the last level taught you. I think the grading system at the end of the stages though is kinda busted though, cause my mom told me I did a great job, but I only got a B, so 0 out of 10 bad game. I'm willing to give it a few points back because god, this game style is charming. I already have a soft spot for PS1 looking games, and Critter nails the aesthetic to a T. From the jagged and low poly models to the characters clipping into stuff as early as the first cutscene, this game is incredibly charming the whole way through, especially in the character design department. Koss is the perfect combo of cool and cute for what an animal version of Solid Snake, but not actually a snake, should be. I mean, even on a stealth mission where he has to be invisible, he never puts out the cigarette. It's perfect. Everything leads up to level 8. If you haven't been paying attention, get ready to get rocked. All of the enemies are on high alert, with guards traveling much further than you'd anticipate, coming in much larger packs, and swarming you like never before. You have segments slinking by collecting key cards, endurance rounds of seeing how far you can stretch that poor little camo meter, and a super long maze in the dark with enough twists and turns to make a pretzel. Or you could just be skilled. Sorry, devs. Once you get all the key cards and deactivate the bomb, the game shows you just how much it takes from Metal Gear with one final twist, which you're gonna have to see for yourself! Covert Critter is one of the most charming games I've played in a long time. It plays into everything I could ever want from a bite-sized experience like this. Cute graphics, familiar gameplay, and a style that is both reminiscent of one of my favorite franchises and yet all its own. And keep in mind that it took me more time to make this video than it took the devs to make the game. You can support this game both on their itch.io account or by wishlisting it on Steam. I look forward to seeing where it goes next. But what if stealth is too slow? Yeah, you want something faster, more explosive. Well, for you, I have Ex Zodiac. Now, I may have said before that Covert Critter was just another Metal Gear Solid game on account of all the evidence that I'm correct, and Ex Zodiac is no different. Somebody thought one day, they haven't made a Star Fox game since 2005. Someone should do something about that. We're not talking about you, go away. The person who thought this up was Ben Hicklings, who's been working on this project since 2017. In June of 2020, they launched a Kickstarter, which within 24 hours met its goal. It wasn't until 2 years later, in July of 2022, however, that the game entered early access on Steam, and I managed to get my hands on it. The game puts you in the space boots of Q, a flying ace set on freeing the Sanzaru system from a terrorist cell called the Zodiac. Did I intend for all 3 games to be animal-themed? No. Did I intend for all 3 games to have specific animal terrorists? Even more so, no. If I planned anything in advance, I'd be so proud of myself. Going into the game, and I was not kidding when I said this is a new Star Fox. I don't even like saying, oh, it's just like this other game, because that makes it sound cheap, like it's a copy, but I honestly mean it in the most endearing way. This is exactly what people were looking for out of a new Star Fox game, and where Nintendo failed to deliver, this does. The controls are still the same pseudo on-rails controls, with the crosshair moving all around. You have a boost and shield bar with 3 smart bombs, and lock-on missiles that let you take out targets in a combo. Unlike the 2 other awful games we've discussed before, this one does have a point system and is all the better for it. So if this game controls like a Star Fox game, it has to work extra hard to set itself apart in other areas to make itself distinct, and the most obvious one is with the visuals. While it still goes for the more rough polygonal feel of the Super FX chip on the SNES, it mixes it with super charming 2D sprites on stuff like the backgrounds. The game relishes in the early 90s vaporwave aesthetic, something that becomes super obvious the more you go on. Nobody puts this many Moai heads in by accident. The color choices along with the theming make each level super distinct and a joy to visit. I am in love with this game's color palette. The graphics are clearly a lot more sophisticated than Star Fox, think something closer to Star Fox 2, and that comes across in the boss fights. After the first level, a basic tutorial grassland stage, you take on a tree-chopping scorpion. There's something about his simple design, vibrant colors, and PNG wrecking ball arms that show off just how charming this style can be. The fight itself can also be a massive challenge, since not only do you take massive damage from the windmills falling on you, but from getting caught in the center of pincer attacks. As you destroy and collect upgrades, this all counts towards a grade at the end of the stage, and Game, please be nice to me. I cry easily. The most important item, however, are these little info chips. Make it to the end of the stage with one and you get an extra bonus level. You thought the main game was obvious with its inspirations? The secret levels are a send up to Space Harrier of all things. You think Star Fox fans are starved? Mr. Last game was in 2016. Space Harrier hasn't gotten anything such a Japan exclusive arcade machine in 2000. You can see their ribcage. These sections are totally optional, but do provide a much higher challenge than the main courses. Since you're not in a ship, you don't have the ability to barrel roll and knock back projectiles, and you aren't blessed with being able to aim in a direction that isn't directly forward. No smart bombs, no boost. It's just a much rougher experience, but is rewarding all the same. If the main game is pulse pounding, the secret levels are heart stopping. You're also incredibly weak since it's just your fragile monkey body against these massive energy blasts, but it still is extremely funny that the entire game stops till Q is ready to continue. The courses even end out with their own unique boss fights, in this case, a giant dragon. Oh, also, if you die during a secret route, you gotta go back into the level and find the chip again if you want to take another shot at a tussle. Level 2 takes place on an ice world with a super pretty blue background and adds in some mid-stage challenges like flying through ice rings for extra missiles. Halfway through the level, it mixes the ice with lava as you dive into an icy cavern with drill arms trying to skewer you. These belong to the level boss, a giant robotic snake piloted by a much smaller, not robotic snake. The boss has way more tricks than the Scorpion, firing missiles, energy blasts, and summoning large lava pillars to scorch you. It's tough as nails, but makes you feel amazing as you just narrowly duck and dodge between the attacks at the last possible second. Once you take him out and get another D, which if this was operating on golf rules would be great for me, we move on to level 3 in an asteroid belt. This one not only has long stretches where the only enemies are the asteroids themselves, but bits where you have to fly through asteroids with slightly brain-melting results, these satellites that create big laser nets they have to weave through, and a mini-boss where you learn that the planet we're looking for is all around us, as the belt is just the remains of the planet after Zodiac got to it. The level ends with the Goat Man and his big rock crusher bot. He's the simplest boss so far. All you gotta do is dodge when he crushes a rock and sends the debris as an attack. He'll occasionally fling energy shots and racial slurs at you, but other than that, he's a cakewalk. That's not a complaint, by the way, I'll take what I can get. After that is a desert world filled with hieroglyphic walls shooting up to block you, Moai cannon surprising you, and a section taking place inside a pyramid with even more traps. This level goes nuts with traps coming out of nowhere, including the mini-boss, which I think came from Hypnagongia from Raptorsoft. It makes the level exciting, but at the same time, it can also get annoying when so much of the threats are impossible to see coming. This problem thankfully doesn't extend to the boss, however, as it's the largest Moai head of them all, being piloted by an ancient Egyptian horse. It goes through a few form changes from rock to metal to anger, and summons obelisks out of the ground to stab you when it's not just running into you itself. The next level is an ocean world that may be my favorite. Not only is it fun to skip across the water, but the flying fish all around the place really play into the vaporwave style I mentioned. The level is filled with sea urchin mines that explode when you get close to them, submarines, and giant deadly tentacles that soon show themselves off to be part of the boss of the stage, piloted by Peppy, but he's an asshole. The boss comes in stages since you take out his tentacles one by one to lure out the main head. The fight does show off one of my main problems with the game, and that's that the smart bomb can just miss. Yeah, my screen clearing attack just sailed past the enemy harmlessly like a paper airplane. It's cool. He throws in one final attack where he helicopters all around to try to get you, but it's just one more shot to the end, and with almost no life left to spare. The final level, Zenom, is the most unique of them all. Instead of being in a plane or on foot, it's on a bike. If there's another 3D shooter that this is like, I simply don't know it. The bike, well, it isn't my favorite to control. Or second favorite, for that matter. I don't know. It goes really fast side to side, meaning you crash into enemies who are coming from behind you. The crosshairs keep shooting back up to the top of the screen whenever you're not aiming, which is really disorienting. And given the amount of stuff this stage throws at you in tandem with the new control scheme, it just makes it kind of frustrating. At the end of the line, we get the boss, who I'm choosing to believe is based on the guy from the Star Fox 64 cartridge. Why was this guy on the cartridge? This one gets form changes depending on how much you're killing him. Target the weapons and blast them away to take away his options till he starts ramming you, and on the literal last shot, he kills you. Thank you so much, game! Also, this is the only level I died on, and somehow it's also the one I got the highest score on. If I had an answer for you, I'd give it. After that is simply a sign from the dev thanking you for getting this far and promising more missions are in development. Another 6, in fact. Yep, the game is only halfway done at this point with a whole other half of the Zodiac to get to. If you want to try it out before it's finished, either purchase it or try out the free demo of the first 2 levels. It's a ride I wholeheartedly endorse. For anybody anybody curious to try out these games, links to all three will be in the description. Animalistic is the only one without a way to try the game for free, or play the whole thing, but other than that, they're all try before you buy. Covert Critter even has a pay what you want model on their itch.io, so whatever you feel you get from it, feel free to give back. Above all else, I just want to get cool, smaller games to as wide an audience as possible, and I hope my word is good enough for you to check them out.